Now let's start with the payback period. The non-discounted methods. The first one we are going to deal with is the payback period. So the payback period and the accounting rate of return, or the return on capital employed. So these are the two main non-discounting methods. Two main non-discounting methods. So let's start with the payback period. Now the payback period, as the name goes, simply means when it takes the project to pay back, or when it takes the project to recover its initial capital outlay, or when it takes the project to recoup the initial investment or initial capital outlay. So the head word here is recover or recoup initial investment. So the payback period is simply when the time it takes the project to recover initial investment. Just simply that. So let's take an example. Let's say project XYZ Project XYZ started with initial or commenced with initial capital. So let me write it this way. So project XYZ commenced with initial capital of $20 million. The project is expecting the following cash flows. So year one, cash flows. So year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, and year 5. They are expecting $10 million in year 1, $5 million in year 2, $50 million in year 3, $8 million in year 4, and $7 million in year 5. The question is, when did it take the company to recover its initial investment? So in order to calculate when it took the company to recover its initial investment, we have to undertake what is called accumulated cash flows. And these accumulated cash flows is just the summation of the cash flows. So you realize that they got $10 million in a full year in year 1, $5 million in year 2. So we add it back to the 10 million, which will give us $50 million. However, The initial capital outlay was $20 million. If we add all the $50 million to this $50 million, we are going to get $30 million, which is over and above the $20 million. So the only thing that we need to add to the $20 million is $5 million. However, we have to take the $5 million out of the $50 million. Therefore, we need to express the $5 million over the 15. So here we are going to get 5 over 15. 5 over 15, which will give us 1 over 3. 1 over 3 times, so this one will give us 1 over 3, which is equal to 0.3333. It's a real carry. So in order to find the payback period, we understand that it took us 2 years to recover $15 million, and it took us 1 year to recover $10 million, 2 years to recover $15 million. However, it took us 0.33. So this 0.33 is a fraction of a year. It is not a full year. It's a fraction of a year. So it took us 2 years, 2.33 years to recover our initial investment, because we recovered almost 50 million in 2 full years. In 2 full years, plus a fraction of a year to recover the full amount. Let's take another example. So this is example 1. Example 2. Let's take, for instance, project ABC. Project ABC had initial investment of $10 million, but the expected cash flows are as follows. Year 1. So year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. Year 1, they are expecting $2 million. Year 2, they are expecting $5 million. Year 3, they are expecting $3 million. And year 4, you are expecting $4 million. So when did it take project ABC to recover initial investment? So in order to undertake that, we do accumulated cash flows. So year 1 we got $2 million. Year 2 plus year 1 will give us $7 million. And year 3, $3 million plus $7 million will give us $10 million. So it took the project 3 years to recover the $10 million that it invested in the project. So it took the payback period is 3 years. Now, having looked at this, let's look at the decision rule. Let's look at the decision rule. It is very important, the decision rule. The decision rule. Now, the decision rule here will guide the decision makers whether to accept this project or reject the project. So the decision rule helps to accept or reject the project. So what is the decision rule? For payback periods, if the project meets management established payback period, the project is accepted. If the project does not meet management established payback period, it is rejected. Now let me let me explain this. Now, before any project starts, management may decide that okay, for for this project we need, let's say, a payback period of say 1 year. This is what we accept as our payback period. So at a board meeting, management will decide that all our projects should recoup its investment in just 1 year. So that is PROW, management PROW established payback period. So any project that does not recoup its initial investment in 1 year, will be rejected. So if the project undertaken, let's take for instance, if for this project XYZ, if management prior established period was say 2 years, then this project will be rejected because its payback period is above 2 years, which is 2.33 years. Therefore, management will reject the project. However, let's take the ABC. If management prior established payback period is say 2 years, 2 years. Okay, sorry. Let me use. If management prior established payback period is say 4 years, management think that all projects should pay their initial investment or recover their initial investment in 4 years. If that is the case, then the payback period of 3 years for this project will be accepted because it's below the 4 years. Okay, having looked at this, let's look at the advantages and disadvantages of the payback period. So let me clean all this place. Sorry. Okay. Okay. So let's look at the advantages and disadvantages. Now, the first advantage of the payback period is simple and easy to compute. The payback period is simple and easy, as we saw in the calculation. It's very simple and easy to uh, compute. It reduces project risk. Now, any capital project or capital budgeting project is for a long period, so it faces a lot of risk, of which we will look into detail the kind of risk that a project faces. It can be as a result of inflation, increase in the cost of capital, etc. So if a project is able to recover its initial investment within a shortest possible time, especially if management sets a shorter payback period, then all the risk associated with that project can be minimized to the extent that the project has recovered all that it was invested. Therefore, what is left is the returns that will accrue to the investors. Next, next, the payback period. Next, the payback period has another advantage, and the advantage of the payback period is that it improves liquidity. It improves liquidity. How does the payback period improve liquidity? It improves liquidity because when a project recovers its initial investment within a short time, that amount of money will, will accrue to the shareholders or the investors. And so these investors will be able to get enough cash flows from the project, which they can consider using to invest in other projects. The next one is that it facilitates it facilitates easy acceptance of competing projects. So it facilitates easy acceptance of competing projects. When a company has two or more projects, then a project that pays its initial capital within a shortest time will be accepted over a project that that pays the initial capital over a long period. So the payback period helps to accept projects that are competing on the grounds of the one that pays the initial capital earlier than the others. Okay, another advantage of the payback period is that it provides the basic is the basic method of investment appraisal that is easily understood by investors. Sorry, that is easily understood by investors. So when you look at the payback period, you realize that it is easy to understand because it's simply the time that it takes a project to recover its initial investment. So investors are able to understand uh, the payback period. Then let's look at the disadvantages. One of the most and profound disadvantages of the payback period is that it ignores time value of money. Now, when we looked at the time value of money, it's simply the present value of future cash flows, or what will be the value of all future cash flows expected brought into current terms. We realize that the payback period ignores the time value of money in its computation. The next one is it ignores cash flows after the payback period. It ignores cash flows after the payback period. So all cash flows after the payback period, the payback payback method does not consider all those cash flows. The next one is it ignores timing of cash flows. Timing of cash flows. Now this point is different, because the timing of cash flows is basically when the cash flows come in. So whether it's year 1, year 2, year 3, up to the number of years that the project anticipates cash flows to arrive. So the payback period does not consider the timing of the cash flows of the project. Then the payback period ignores the possibility of investing the cash flows. So whether the cash flows will be invested or will not be invested, the payback period does not consider that. And these are few examples of the advantages and the disadvantages of the payback period. Now, profound disadvantage of the payback period is that it ignores the time value of money. Therefore, we are going to the next method, which is the discounted payback period, which is an improvement of the traditional payback period. Now let's look at the discounted payback period. Okay, so discounted discounted payback. Now, as we saw already, one of the profound disadvantages of the payback or the traditional payback period is that it does not take into account time value of money. It does not take into account time value of money. So in order to improve on that shortcoming, the discounted payback period came into being. And the definition of the payback period is the same under the traditional payback period. The time to recover or recoup initial investment. Considering the time value of money. Just simply that. Okay, so now let's take an example. Now let's look at, say, project Tresta needs an initial investment of, say, of $25 million. The projected cash flows from this investment are as follows: year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, and year 5. the cash flows are, so let me put dollars here. So here is $10 million, here is $15 million, $20 million, $24 million, and $30 million. Now find the payback period if the opportunity cost of capital is 10%. So how do we find the payback period? In order to find the payback period, we need to set a table. So let's set a simple table. I'm using the table because I want you to so we start with the years, the cash flows. Now we go for the discount factors, the discounted cash flows, and the accumulated cash flows, the accumulated discounted cash flows. So we start with the year. We start with the cash flows, the discount factors, which is 10%, the discounted cash flows, then the accumulated discounted cash flows, in order to calculate the payback period. So let's look at year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, and year 5. Okay, so let me use a different color. So year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. The cash flows we're given here: 10, 15, 20, 24, and this is 30. Now the discounted cash flows for at 10% can be calculated. So for year 1, the discount factor for year 1 is going to be 1 over 1.1 plus, okay, so let me state the formula. So we are going to have 1 over 1 plus r exponent n, which implies that we are going to have 1 over 1 plus 0.10 all exponent 1. So this one will give us 0.90 if you punch it on the calculator. So 0.909. Year 2 will give us, year 2 is going to give us 0.826. Year 3 will give us 0.751. Year 4 will give us 0.683, and year 5 will give us 0.621. So after that, we multiply the discounted cash flows, the discount factors by the cash flows. So this one will give us 9.09, and this one 0.826 times 15 will give us 12.39, 12.39, then 0.751 times 20 will give us 15.02. Then 0.683 times 24 will give us 15.316. 15.31. Then 30 times 0.621 will give us 18.63. So now that we have found the discounted cash flows, now we need to find the payback period. But before we can find the payback period, we need to take cognizance of the initial investment. So we accumulate the discounted. So starting with 9.09, then we add this to the 9.09. So 9.09 plus 12.39, giving us 21.48. Giving us 21.48. Now 21.48. Sorry. So this one will give us 21.48. Now we need to have 25 million, but the amount here is 15.02. So in order to have 15, we need roughly 4 point something. So we need to add about 3.48 or 3.52 in order to get 25 million. Why is it that we can't add all the 15.0 to the 21? It's because the project wants only 25 million. They want to recover the initial investment. So if we add all the 15 million to the 21.4, it's over and above the 25 million. Therefore, we want the exact 25 million. But we need to understand this, that what we are doing here means that it took us, what we are doing and want to get is that it took us a full year to recover 9.09 and 2 years to recover 21.48. So how many years does it take, or will it take us to recover the 25 million? Therefore, when we take the 3.52 here, the 3.52, and express it over 15.02, we are going to get some decimal. We are going to get 0.23. What this means is that in the third year, it took us a fraction of a year to recover our investment. It took us a fraction of a year to recover a full investment. Therefore, this project, the payback period, let me write here, the payback period is equal to the addition of the full year plus this one, which is the 2 years, plus the 0.23, which is 2.23, is 2.23 years. 2.23 years. So this project took 2.23 years. The disadvantage, as we noticed earlier, is that this discount, the payback period does not consider cash flows after the payback period, you realize that when we took 3.52 out of this, the rest of the money left will not be considered. Likewise, this and this. Hope you understand the payback, the discounted payback period. We now go into the calculation for the accounting rate of return.